Hello, friends. Welcome, Salem Mason Happy Home. It's Wednesday, March 26, 2024. Almost to Douglas's birthday. You know, he's going to be the big 6'7" coming up here. Yeah, so, we're cherishing every moment that we can because, we're just two of us now. And, we're getting up there. But, we're doing. And we hope our loyal listener, I hope that you are doing well as well, So I'm going to talk to you today about name calling. Now, we've all done it. We all do it, and we all will continue doing it because I believe it is part of the human condition, and an unconscious part of the human condition as well as a conscious one. And I call people names all the time. I do. Almost never to their faces though, because I'm just that kind of person right now. But no, actually, I do want to tell you that I took a pledge. I would never say anything about somebody on this platform or behind their back or anything that I would never say to them. So really, if I've called somebody a dumbass, it's because I've actually looked them in the eyes and called them a dumbass and told them why. I felt that way. So, I do. I'm as guilty as any human being. However, there is a time and a place. If you are a fifth grader on the playground and you call a third grader dumb, stupid, retarded, fat, ugly, loser, you would create a community scandal and you would more than likely be punished severely up to and including suspension. Okay. That's just the way of it. If you are an employer and you are someone's boss and you go up to them and you call them dumb, stupid, retarded, lazy, incompetent, loser, you would be brought up on harassment charges and you would lose your job. Okay. So why is it that we are allowing our taxpayer-paid elected officials from Donald Trump all the way down to do this? Democrats, Republicans, Libertarians, Green Parties, Independents, it doesn't matter. A politician is a politician, and if you are in an elected position, it's because the people elected you to do the work for them. And while you're doing the work for them, they are paying you from their hard-earned tax dollars to keep your salary going, and to pay your staff, and to pay your transportation, and all that kind of good garbage. So we're paying you. You work for us. And you represent us not just on the local stage, the national stage, but the world stage as well. Everybody is watching because everything that goes on in the world is now available to be watched and viewed and experienced in real time. If your child was picking on another child in the house and calling them dumb, stupid, fat, retarded, loser, you would punish that child. You would sit that child down. That child would be called a bully. And we actually have anti-bullying laws. There are some names you can call somebody that are considered hate crimes, violations of our own Constitution, that are not protected under the First Amendment of free speech, which we hold very sacred here in America, because most other countries don't have freedom of speech on any platform in any manner. But if you want to call somebody a horrible derogatory word and you know that it would be considered hate speech, or call you a bully, you'd be labeled a bully, or you'd be brought up on harassment charges, you would think twice about doing it. You might keep it to yourself. You might practice better communication skills. And I expect from our elected officials, from the president on down, that we have elected and our taxpayer dollars are paying for, to be above and beyond the name calling. Now, I do understand that in Trump's case, his presence, his statements, his name calling, his bombastic rhetoric is very relatable to multiple social cultures of individuals and social age groups, like the youth group, the youth vote, if you will, the youth citizenship. And being relatable to them is what gets the votes, and it's what got him the votes, the youth vote this time around, because he's relatable and because he's admirable to the youth vote, because he's able to get away with something that they would not normally be able to get away with, which is calling somebody names. I expect better from my politicians, my elected officials, that we put in place, that we pay their salaries. I expect them to be above that, to represent us in the highest, most exemplary example of professionalism and dignity and democracy. And I don't think that's happening, and I think it's getting worse and worse. And it crescendoed for me when I saw the news this morning and they were discussing Jasmine Crockett, who tried to pull a Trump, and at a human rights event that she was speaking at, a human rights event. And this moron, and yeah, I can call her that because I'm not a paid official, I'm just some person on with a cell phone, called Governor Abbott Governor Hot Wheels. Now, that wasn't as derogatory as something she could have called him, okay? But at that time, in that place, it was highly unprofessional, disrespectful, and inappropriate, because he is actually her boss, if you think about it. And it should not be tolerated. It shouldn't be tolerated from Trump. It shouldn't be tolerated from anybody. And I get Trump is he is the boss of the boss of the bosses, but people can actually stand up to him and say, hey, you know what? You represent us on the world stage. People look to you for examples. Maybe tone it down. Now, he is also a born, bred, raised, native New York City New Yorker. They have the best accents in the world. They are bombastic. They are loudmouthed. They can be very gregarious. I used to live on the East Coast in Rhode Island and New Hampshire, and I had on a couple of occasions traveled through Manhattan and New York City, and I would never do it again, but because you do so at your own peril. But I get it. I understand it. It's just how they are. It's a cultural norm. So you kind of have to give him a little bit of slack for that. But I think it'd be more than okay for people to say, look, you know what? I think that you represent us on the world stage, and I would like better from you, something a little more mature. Now, I will say, I have noticed that he is more articulate this time around, because, we had him for a term before, and we have him again, and he's much improved. His humanitarian skills, his communication skills, his presence is a lot more polished and more dignified than it was the first time around. But there's always room for improvement. And when the incident with Jasmine Crockett happened yesterday, it made me realize that that we're hypocrites if we allow our elected officials to name call and behave in these manners that are not becoming. If you're a surgeon, it's my understanding that surgeons, even if their patients are knocked out on an operating table, they're not allowed to make derogatory remarks or jokes or anything about the individual on the table, for the plain fact that they might be able to hear you or pick up on what you're saying. A doctor can't walk into the doctor's office and say, well, you fat slob. If you put the pizza down and get off your couch, you might, be healthier, or you're just a damn hypocrite. Hypochondriac. They can't say that. They would be in an incredible amount of trouble if they did. they would probably be brought up on sanctions and charges and stuff. Same thing with a lawyer. A lawyer can't come in and say, you're just a dumbass loser criminal and you're trash. I mean, they can't do that, right? So why are we allowing them to get away with it? Is it because that we have this assumption that they have power? They don't. Their power comes from the people, the tax-paying Americans who elected them to represent them and pay their salaries every day, every week, every month, every year. They don't have the power, we have the power. So we need to step up and demand a higher example from all of them. It's okay to tell everybody, from Trump down to Jasmine Crockett, it's not okay for you to be that way. Because it's not okay for Republicans to stand back and call people names and then become offended and appalled when a Democrat does it, and vice versa. It's got to stop all the way across the board. It's just how it has to be. We have to hold them to a higher professional standard of dignity and democracy. Especially when we have hate crime laws here, and words can be considered hate crime. There are many words that you can say to somebody that are considered a hate crime. So why are we letting it happen? It's probably because we believe, or we know from experience, that they will ignore us. Now that we elected them and we put them in power, they think it's okay to ignore us. I've written multiple letters to Amy Klobuchar, and she never, ever, ever, ever responded. I've written letters to the official site for J.D. Vance, and they never responded. Official sites of Governor Ted Cruz and Lori Swanson, our previous Attorney General here, and to multiple politicians. And the only one that actually responded when I went to their official site and sent them a letter with a question or a comment, there was only one politician one time that responded, and responded in the first person, as in it wasn't an assistant who had a rubber stamp letter. It was this individual, and that was Chris Christie, the former governor of New Jersey. Chris Christie is the only one who responded. And it was later in the evening, the following day, from me sending him a notice, and it was back before Biden was in office, and I was asking him some questions about his political platform, because I was looking into seeing who I wanted to vote for. And it was a wonderful letter. It was professional, it was dignified, it was meaningful. He responded to my questions point by point. It wasn't some, blanket letter that they send out. This was actually from this individual. And I really appreciated that about him. I really did. He did what I expected everybody to do. And here I am, a native Minnesotan living in Minnesota, and I couldn't even get Klobuchar to give me a minute of her time because she thinks she's too good for everybody. She's a snob. She's mean. I've heard she's abusive to her staff. And quite frankly, I think that she has, overstayed her welcome in the House, and she needs to go. Just how I feel. But I think that, all kidding aside, all bullshit aside, I think that it's okay to send notices. Put these officials on notice. You are an elected official paid for by the American people. You work for us. We have the power, not you. And we are telling you that it's got to stop. It's got to stop all the way around. So maybe this thing with Jasmine Crockett has reached a breaking point, and somebody with some common sense will stand up and say just that. But I'm not an elected official. I'm not a paid official. And what I do and say is I'm accountable for, good, bad, or otherwise. So I'll take the heat for anything I say that might offend somebody, because we can't always please everybody. But I think that we can tone down the name calling, not just the rhetoric, but the name calling. And until next time, do good and be good.